The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we are discussing Maniac Cop 2 from 1990. So with this one, we're doubling our budget. We're going to double our body count. We're going to double the carnage. This is a bigger one. Would you say it's the alien to the aliens or the aliens to the alien? Not necessarily, but in that direction.
Right. Yeah. It's much more. Yeah. It certainly is more action packed.
Mm-hmm. Spiro's back for the stunt coordinator.
Back. Yeah. Yeah. Stunts are bigger. Mm-hmm. It's a lot wilder. It's much more action heavy than the first one.
Yeah. The first one, suspense, slasher, slower. There's
more of a thriller.
Yeah. There's the mystery to who is killing and who is behind the Maniac Cop. But in this one, even though at the beginning, action scene or kill scene, they still bathe him in shadows. And I'm just like, yeah, but that's just because it's looking cool that way, not because they're trying to keep a secret from us, you know.
But it does look cool. It's kind of like the whole barely see the shark in Jaws. They only have so much money for the makeup and you still want to be like, well, what does he look like now? I bet he looks screwed up. Mm-hmm. Kind of the same way like when I was a kid, like I talked about this in watching Friday the 13th final chapter. How it was like, well, I'm just going to wait and see what it looks like under the mask because I want to know what that looks like.
Right.
So
sure.
It still gives you a little bit mystery of like, well, how screwed up is his head?
They elevated that in this. I guess maybe he was underwater for a long time, so he's a little pruny.
I guess, yeah.
He lost a nose, maybe.
He lost a nose. Well, he lost some ears. He's down an ear anyway.
Mm-hmm. They put more time and money into the Maniac Cop's appearance in this one, which is fun. Like a slasher villain should get gnarlier as they go along, much like Jason did. But yeah, the whole gang is back. Larry Cohen. William Lustig is back, of course. As we mentioned, Spiro, the stunt coordinator, is back. They went from, I believe it was like a $1.3 million budget on the first film to about $4 million this time, or maybe just under 4. So we're looking at a triple the budget situation.
Yeah, I mean, it shows. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one, I was kind of looking around to see what the general consensus is. And some people say that they like this one more than the original. And that's always a tough call for me, and maybe even an unnecessary call. But I can see why. At least it's a lot more. Yeah, it's a lot more action packed. I don't want to say it's easier to watch, but it's like the pacing on this one is just kind of nonstop. Once it goes,
it's a lot zippier. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, it's just everything about it is sort of bigger and more, which is sort of what you want out of a sequel. Mm-hmm. I didn't, not all of it worked for me 100%, but sure. But there's some really impressive stuff in here.
William Lustig calls it his best film. He thinks that this film is better than Maniac, which I think a lot of people tie him to as, his biggest one. But sure. He just said, me and my entire crew were firing on all cylinders to make a great B movie. So I love that he still refers to all of his films as B movies because he knows exactly the trench that he's operating in. Yeah,
I was reading some review with him about this movie, and he was talking about, because this was way back, this like not too long after Grindhouse, the Tarantino Rodriguez movie came out. Because they were asking about if that caused a resurgence into stuff, and he was like, those movies are sort of superficially Grindhouse stuff. Like Tarantino's wouldn't be a Grindhouse stuff because it's too talky. We would have cut all that stuff out.
Totally, yeah.
And certainly, this one is like, then you watch this, you're like, oh yeah, you would have, because we need more action. Mm-hmm.
And put every one of these big action set pieces in the trailer. From lady hanging off the edge of the car to the fire stunt at the end. You gotta put it all in.
Get butts and seats.
So the big first set piece happens at Julio's bodega, and we see poor Julio behind the counter where he gets harassed by a low-life kind of robber type of guy.
That guy's such a great scumbag.
Oh, completely. It's all in the mouth. Yeah. Not since No Country for Old Men have you seen such tension at a counter as Julio scratching off scratch-offs for the guy.
Hey, let's open up some lotto tickets, huh?
Sure, see. Okay.
Maybe I'll be a winner.
Okay.
I feel lucky.
They win. which is fun.
Right.
Eventually, the Maniac Cop does show up, and you think that he's going to, like, you know, save the life of this guy. And he actually blows away the clerk. The robber just runs outside, and by then there's a whole bunch of cops that have shown up. And I do like the line that he says here. He says, "It was one of you!" as he screams to the cops, which is oddly effective. And of course, the cops blow him away too.
Yeah, I didn't pick it up on my first watch, but I think the idea is, because the opening credits are sort of, you see a lot of police cars. Mm-hmm. And I think the idea is that he takes a police car, and so he has a radio. So I was wondering, like, why he keeps showing up to these things. Because when later with the Turkel, like, why is he arriving to go deal with this? Mm-hmm. But I think that's the gimmick. I mean, like, I'm trying to piece that together. Why he would have shown up? Why would he just be at this place? Yeah,
I thought that was just like low budget movie logic. You know, but a police scanner makes sense.
And there's a certain amount of magical thinking in this. But yeah, mm-hmm. But I love in the scene where he appears and he just like appears from behind an aisle, like in front of the beer freezer or whatever. And the scumbag just turns and unloads a shotgun into him. Mm-hmm. And like the shots go past him, like blow up the glass of the refrigerators. I don't know it's not steam. What would you call that?
Zombie air.
Yeah. Zombie air starts filling the floor. But like the clerk is just like, oh, thank God you're here. Like he just wants the guy, like, just take bullets to the chest and be like, shoo.
Yeah.
A normal person finally showed up. Thank God.
Sure.
Yeah. But I couldn't figure out why he kept showing up places, but I think that must be it. Cause you think he's there to save the day. And no, as we'll learn later from the end credit theme song, he's not the cop that you want to see.
Right. This gets into, as the movie goes on, like, I don't think that there's a rhyme or reason behind all of his killings. Like, I know that we're looking for he's killing the people that set him up, but I feel like that's so loosey-goosey. Like, what'd the poor clerk do?
Yeah, exactly. Like and then when he kills the cop that later we'll get to it with the towing the car.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a cool set piece.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some stuff that's definitely revenge, but yeah, some of it is really don't think about it too hard.
Yeah, when you have a cool slasher moment, just don't think about the Zidar's motivations.
Don't question it. He knows what he's doing.
We cut to our first appearance of Bruce Campbell and Teresa, and they have to meet with a cop psychologist because these two are still convinced that the Maniac Cop is alive. And so it's basically, this just tells us that this picked up right where the first movie ended, which is funny because it was St. Patrick's Day at the end of that film, and there's a Christmas tree in the office in this film. So
I mean, like, some time has passed because they've installed a new commissioner, this time played by Michael Lerner, once again, picking up the slack, king of picking up the slack.
Yep.
William Lustig had a funny story about being able to cast him. Was like, you know, he was about done with the project he was working on, and I called him up. Do you want to be Maniac Cop? He's like, I just did Barton Fink. I just did, you know, whatever. And he's like, yeah, well, what are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah.
And I think that explains, like, I always wonder about that, because particularly it seems like Best Actress winners are usually, like, their follow-up movie tends to not be very great. I'm thinking of, like, Aeon Flux with Charlize Theron, or Catwoman with Halle Berry. They just get the call. They're like, well, I'm not working tomorrow, so
might as well.
I guess.
Yeah.
So some time has passed. Michael Lerner's now, Edward Doyle is now the commissioner, and demands that they've been cleared of all wrongdoing, they found out. And demands that they go see a psychologist. And it was a little confusing to me, because it's like, is the idea that they don't think anything happened, but they're just going, no, a maniac came in and did all this stuff. It's just not Matt Cordell, who you say it is.
Right, yeah.
Whoever it was, we don't know, died, and, you know, we don't, moving on. Which everyone just seems to, like, want to forget that this happened, which is kind of interesting. You'd think there would still be a lot of, like, hemming and hawing and people being like, oh, remember the tragic.
Especially considering a bunch of cops died.
Yeah, but I guess, you know, in 90s New York, that happened every day.
There was bodies
that was as
all
bad.
the time. Yeah.
In Jason Takes Manhattan, New York.
Right.
It just happens all the time.
Next, we meet our hero, Detective Sean McKinney, and he's played by Robert Davi, who most people, I think, will know from Goonies as one of the Fratellis, but he's been in lots of other stuff, but I feel like that's his kind of most well-known. I mean, he's a villain in a Bond movie.
The Living Daylights. He's in Shadow Stevens' Tracks That classic movie everyone loves.
Yes.
He's in a very bizarre Canadian movie called Sicilian Vampire, which is
good grief.
Awful.
Yeah.
But he's in it.
He shows
and
up.
He sings some opera, I think. He is also an opera singer.
They're really going for the hard-boiled detective thing with this guy. They try and they try and they try, and I think he's kind of good at it sometimes, but maybe I feel like he's being more of a parody of it, and he's kind of funny.
A little bit, because he's written extremely broadly in that kind of way. Because when we first see him, it's an alleyway.
Classic.
Guy falls out a window onto a van, and then he gets shot.
Yeah.
And the camera slowly pans over, and it's Robert Davi that shot him, and he's a cop. So he just shot a guy
out of a window.
Yeah, but there was no
context, no reason,
no provocation or anything like that. He's just like, I'll just put him down, and he didn't kill him though, because that would be bad.
Yeah.
But if you just randomly shoot a guy and he lives, it's fun.
Too bad you didn't kill him.
Yeah, too much fucking paperwork.
That's a hard-boiled line.
That is extremely hard-boiled. Oh, he's in Die Hard too. I just remember that. He's in the first Die Hard. Because like later when he talks about, how there's a little bit of Cordell in all of us or whatever, just all I could think of was like, you shot a guy.
Well, and when he talks about there's a little bit of Cordell in all of us, I thought that they were, I mean, I had seen this before, but I couldn't remember it well enough. I thought they were going to try to either like red herring it a little bit or just set him up as like the next Maniac Cop. Like, because
he's like, man, he's got some good ideas.
Yeah. This is Matt Cordell, right? I'm going to subscribe to his podcast. Damn that algorithm. But so he, of course, has to go to a psychologist, and he's just not taking it seriously at all because he's too cool for this stuff.
That leaves on a very odd note. This is where we're introduced to our other sort of lead of this, Claudia Christian, who did not have a great time on the set, and no one seemed to get along with her. Although I'm hearing different stories about it. It's one of those things like we talked about with Psycho 2, where, okay, here's this one story, but we find out later that, Meg Tilly was freezing everyone out. She was a prima donna. And we find out later that, well, maybe that's not the case. Maybe it was in fact Anthony Perkins that was acting like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about she was a problem on set, not getting along with anyone. She apparently had a medical condition, which I've heard is a pregnancy, but I have not had that confirmed.
She wrote about it in her book.
Okay.
But she did not. So in one of the stunts in this movie, she's hanging on to the outside of a car and she ended up suffering a miscarriage, which is a tragedy. The problem was she didn't say to the producers that she was pregnant when she signed on.
Right.
And so there became this lawsuit and an insurance problem. I know people should say, well, she should have said something. And I'm like, well, being a woman in one of these kind of movies at that time, I'm sure they would have been like, oh, you're pregnant. Of course, we're not going to hire you. So
right.
I'm sure there's a little bit of that going on. And, to me, it's just more of like, it's a tragedy all around than any sort of like finger pointing thing.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. It's a bummer.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure a lot of that, didn't endear her to people on the set who then maybe retroactively decided that she didn't like, I don't know. I'm kind of always interested in people's personalities on sets, considering, we've been on a lot of them, and, you can tell how that affects the production, but especially for a woman in the 80s and 90s on a set like this, I'm sure it couldn't have been easy.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a bummer situation all around. Mm-hmm. But at the end of that interaction, she starts laying out something about how he had a partner that called her for help. And isn't that weird? A cop asking for help. But he didn't show up. He ended up killing himself.
Well, someone talked him out of showing up here. Probably told him he'd be a wimp if he admitted something was bothering him.
What are you getting at?
You tell me.
And then like Robert Davi kind of looks a little guilty about like, wait, I don't know. There was just a lot of like information given to me that just kind of came out of nowhere. But that's going to be a theme in this movie, like where when we get to Turkel, how does he know anything that's going on?
Oh, for sure.
With like Maniac Cop. He's just sort of as read, like, trust me, they're vibing. It's fine.
Well, it makes me think of what you were just saying about, cutting out all the dialogue scenes. Like, let's get rid of all that stuff, get to the action. Bruce Campbell finds out he's in the paper for, I guess, what happened last week. Again, the timing, I'm not so sure about, but who cares? So he wants to buy a dozen from the newspaper salesman who is James Earl Jones' father.
That's so weird.
It's just, I love these things.
I know it's kind of amazing and kind of like, oh, wow. But then it's also like, why is he still working Like he's got to be a billion years old at that time. Like
maybe
why is he still working?
He just worked for the art. Are you saying that James Earl Jones wouldn't take some of his sweet Darth Vader money and put up his dad somewhere nice? Is that the allegation?
I don't know. I do not know their relationship. Right. He is, he's not returning my call.
Right. He had some father-son issues to work out himself.
Yeah. But it's also apparently was bitterly cold. But they made this like 80-year-old man go out there and be a newsman. But he was game for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's Bruce Campbell starts reading his press clippings, actually much like Matthew Cordell used to do in the first one.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Sure.
He doesn't get to do it very long because he gets murdered.
Bruce Campbell gets stabbed in the back. So I had remembered this from the first time I had seen it. One of B-movie's favorite actors is gone in the first 15 minutes. Yeah. So they pull the whole Alien 3 thing here and just toss the people that you love.
Well, it's also kind of interesting, that framing of him being stabbed in the back, because I'm sure he might feel that way. I mean, the discussion I heard about it was that he said it was a money issue. Mm-hmm. William Lustig and Larry Cohen are like, well, we took those characters as far as we could take them. Which, did you?
Yeah.
Like, they're not really that fleshed out characters. You probably could have done more with them, but I can understand wanting to do something completely different at the same time. Like, this is the Maniac Cop story, not the Bruce Campbell and Lorraine Landon story.
It is kind of funny to think, though. I know that money doesn't work out this way all the time, but like Robert Davi is just coming off of like James Bond movies and stuff like that. So you would think his rate would be higher than Bruce Campbell, who is just coming off of Maniac Cop 1. Yeah. So I don't know.
And I mean, Bruce Campbell does not enjoy talking about this movie. It was a bad time in his life. He was going through a messy divorce, and also, so it was just bad news all around for different actors in this.
Yeah, evidently early on at cons, when he would be asked about it, he would just go on these like tirades and just tear into the person who asked the question in a semi-comedic way, and so the word got around, and so he was just like, "Never ask me about Maniac Cop 2," which made his fans always ask him to get torn down by Bruce Campbell himself. So he turned it into a bit.
We have a mutual acquaintance that caught some of that wrath asking about Evil Dead 4 many years ago.
Oh,
yeah. So he's out of the picture, which is, a nice shock, a nice Janet Leigh moment.
Yeah.
He's gone. Larry Landon is oddly enough not thrilled about it.
Right. Cut to a beat cop is trying to tow some rich guy's car, and they have a back and forth. This scene, the only thing I like about this scene is the very end of it, when the kill happens and the rich guy just like tears up the ticket as kind of like a button on the scene. But the rest of it is just kind of like pointless and weird and doesn't quite work to me. Yeah,
well, it seems like the crux of the scene is going to be, or what the scene is building to is going to be like, all right, Maniac Cop's going to show up and give this rich asshole what for.
Yep.
And because he's trying to get his fancy car is being towed by just a regular cop, and he's berating the cop and trying to get out of the ticket. Cordell shows up and murders the cop and then just leaves.
Right.
Which is great because he hangs the cop on the tow truck.
Hook. Right.
It starts to drive away. You see just like close to the cop, and this car starts to drive away, and then it cuts to the rich guy reacting and then cuts back. And you can kind of see that the guy in the back is spun a little bit. And so I wondered if it was like, well, that effect didn't work where, he kind of spun away from the camera, so it didn't look as good. Or if it's basically, we just like truncated 3 minutes of him doing like a 12-point turn trying to get out of that parking space.
That's got to be it.
Which would have been so funny.
Oh my God.
And just see him like leaning out the window.
And the body just flops around a whole bunch. Yeah. Oh man.
That would have been, pretty ridiculous. But yeah, so it's a RIP to that guy who would just happen to be there. Right. Which, like you said, it's no rhyme or reason to it. We don't know who that guy is. He just imagine that point of view though, is you're yelling at this cop. This other cop shows up and then kills him and drives away. Cop.
Yeah, and you're like, all right, I guess I'm out of this ticket.
Yeah,
he does not.
I like that. That's his takeaway. He's not like, oh, the horror. He's like, well, I'm not paying this.
Exactly. But he can only rest for so long because another police officer arrives at his house to arrest him for the killing of said earlier cop. And then he just starts screaming about how it was a giant cop instead. The police chief, after a bit, they examine this evidence. They don't want to admit that it's still the Maniac Cop from first film.
6'3", scars all over.
Except one.
Don't say it. Don't even think it.
This starts going into more so than the first one. Well, I should say more so than the original cut of the first one. We didn't talk about this in the last episode, but there is a version made for Japanese television that they added all these additional scenes to of the mayor and his aide talking about what's going on with Matt Cordell. And it ends with the mayor getting killed by Matt Cordell.
Right.
But there's sort of a reference to this cover up that happened. That storyline really starts in this movie proper, about that. Maybe there was some stuff they kind of set him up as a fall guy.
Right.
And so that's why the commissioner's being all cagey about it.
What begins next is a very long, at least it felt long to me, stunt/chase sequence. Susan and Teresa go out on the town. They grab a cab. Teresa is very, very nervous. What they end up doing is stealing the cab because the cab driver's being weird.
Well, the cab driver's she's unsettled about everything. And he's like, I think I got a flat. She's like, oh, I'm being set up. There's the cops out to get me.
Right. Don't pull over.
And he gets out to check it. And she's like, she sees a shadow and is like, nope. And steals the cab.
A cop car starts pursuing them and wrecking them from behind. And they end up crashing and Teresa gets thrown into a department store. The Maniac Cop then ends up handcuffing Susan. Teresa grabs a chainsaw from the department store and attacks the Maniac Cop. And that's such a beautiful scene because she pulls over the Maniac Cop. You just see torso. Yeah. She fires point blank into his chest a whole bunch of times. Nothing happens. Throws her through the window. And then one shot, you see her get up. Camera pans to the right, and there's a stand up of a brawny looking dude. Totally
holding with a chainsaw, and she pulls the chainsaw off. It's just a stand. Oh, I laughed so hard during that bit. And he's just smiling with the chainsaw. She's perfect. And while Susan is getting handcuffed and sent away in another car.
Yes.
That's just a wild stunt. And I guess he built it off of the an idea he had from the Jackie Chan's Police story. Where there's a character handcuffed to a car and that, and he wanted to see more happen with it. So, but it's an impressive bit. She's running alongside the car, hanging up against the car right after, because the car chase in the taxi is impressive because it's since it's got a flat, it's running on rims.
Oh, right.
And
yes.
They had thin rubber at the back to kind of give more of the illusion. So they weren't just tearing up, and sparklers underneath to shut all the sparks, but it's just a really cool chase. The most incredibly badass moment where Teresa comes at him with the chainsaw and he just catches it.
Yeah.
He just catches it. I was not expecting that.
Right.
And it means nothing to him.
Catches it in his hand and then proceeds to just very quickly break her neck. So
both leads just pretty unceremoniously. I mean, she gets a little bit more. She gets the stunt through the window and all that and a little bit of fight back, but it is still just pretty immediate how quickly they're going.
Yeah. And, she gets her, her fist pumping moment. She might be a final girl type of situation, but no, he just walks right up, twists her neck. Done.
Yep. Well, and initially Larry Cohen wanted her to be just in a coma.
The whole film?
Come back basically.
Oh yeah.
And that may or may not happen in 3. We'll see.
Yes. So all this time, Susan is hanging on to the runaway cop car. She's handcuffed to it, as you were mentioning earlier. She manages to crawl back inside and get control of the car, but it goes crashing into, and I just wrote something a construction area. It's just one of those 80s, 90s, gangster / horror / whatever locations, machines and concrete and stuff like that around.
And ramps everywhere.
Yeah. McKinney arrives on the scene and questions her.
I saw him. I saw what he did.
What'd you see? Big guy in a bulletproof vest dressed up like a cop.
Sean, I saw Matt Cordell.
Which I also like, by the way, but we skipped over it, but talking about Robert Earl Jones, when he gets questioned about Bruce Campbell's death, his little monologue about being buried under freezing bodies and feeling, because he's blind, and when Bruce Campbell stabbed in front of him, he's like, what's going on? And he touches the Maniac Cop's hand and
says it was cold.
I never thought I'd feel anything like that again. Frozen, dead flesh.
But it's a great little monologue.
Absolutely.
And, it was fantastic. I just realized we didn't talk about that, so I want to spit that out here.
For sure. That night on TV, Susan goes on, as expected. She said she had a funny line earlier about like, make this quick. I got to be on TV in a little while.
When she's getting into the ambulance. Yeah, because that was initially what Teresa was going to do. She was on her way to go on this sort of like almost like America's Most Wanted for New York.
Yeah.
To go talk about this.
Mm-hmm. And she is described by the host as a lady cop. And
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, just so condescending.
Oh, lady cop.
Lady cop.
Yeah, because the commissioner is ostensibly on there to talk about this rash of exotic dancer killings that have been happening.
Got it.
All these like husbands in New York are like, whoa, this is a crazy story. You hearing about that?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about exotic dancers.
Yeah, Sheila didn't show up at her shift last. I mean, the guys at the club told me that there was one missing.
Yeah, I was too busy praying.
Yeah.
But the host of the show is Charles Napier, who, first of all, like they're like, well, okay, Bruce Campbell's out. We need more chins in this movie. Yep. Let's get Charles Napier. And it's a kind of a shame that this is all he does, because I love his voice. Mm-hmm. If you ever watched the Critic cartoon, he was Duke on that. I think that was my first interaction with him, but really like hearing that guy talk. Mm-hmm. But so Susan starts spouting off about the other killings. The Maniac Cop is behind it. And, how come we haven't talked about them? And the commissioner fobs her off. Is like, well, no, this is a copycat. We don't want to give him publicity.
Copycat?
It's a copycat.
Yeah.
Cop-ish cat.
It's a cop-ish cat. It's a cat with a little like police hat on and a little baton.
And then puts on a little mask and is like, crimes.
We cut to a strip club where a creepy Charles Manson looking guy is just watching the dancers. And he's, earlier he was watching the broadcast. Now this is Turkle. And from what I gathered from reading, other reviews and stuff like that, Turkle seems to be a divisive character in this film. And I kind of like him. I think it was a cool wrinkle to have in this.
It doesn't make a lick of sense to me, but I still kind of like him. Mm-hmm. And Lustig's designing him, like not designing, but like setting him up like that with the big beard. That's supposed to be reminiscent of Bela Lugosi in Son of Frankenstein. Yes. But I absolutely looked at it when Charles Manson. Right. That was just my first reaction to Leo Rossi as this character. Yeah. He apparently tried to trying to find this character would go to strip clubs and annoy different dancers.
Just stare them down.
by stare them down. And then, yeah. So it's like, I creeped out a lot of women for art.
For William Lustig. Buddy. A lot of men have probably said that.
But no, I mean, he's certainly creepy, but he's also like really pathetic and annoying too. Mm-hmm. I like that. That's not a character you see a whole lot.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. And
usually you see serial killers who are cool, man, and like who
are super cool,
interesting to talk to,
who are dark and twisted, like me.
Yeah, this guy just annoying.
He's really annoying. And that would be a bummer to get killed by an annoying guy
for sure.
Like if it's one guy that's like I am becoming, or horror must punish. But this guy's just annoying.
Right?
He'd be like, just kill me. I don't want to listen to you anymore.
Right? God.
But I mean that the scene, the assault scene is rather upsetting.
Yes.
When he gets down to business, he's
cool again, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he's cool. Yeah, no, I'm like when he's doing things I endorse, I'm like,
he pushes away the Funko Pop collection, and then he goes to work, and that's what you want to see. But
he's just instead of the 8x10 glossies, he's collecting Funko Pops,
right? Of different dancers.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure those are coming.
That scene is disturbing, and it's kind of like the first big kill scene in the series that is not the Maniac Cop. So we have kind of our secondary killer in this movie.
And I thought this was interesting because he's just seeing news about Matt Cordell. He's watching the show that Susan is on while the strippers are going on in the background. Then they announce, first time to the stage. This is our first one. Like no one has ever had her. Brand new stripper. And so it's this kind of miniature horror story about like, this is your first time stripping and this is who you encounter.
Right.
But then it's not even just though that like, here's this woman and then she's brutalized. We get this little sad character moment where in between that, we're back in her apartment and she's like lying to her mom on the phone about how she works at an office.
Mm-hmm. I'm sharing this lovely apartment with a few of the girls from the secretarial pool. Yeah. They're really sweet. Okay, well then, as soon as I get my phone, I'll give you a call and give you the number. All right. Okay. But in the meantime, please, just don't worry about me. I'm fine.
Make you wonder, like, was this something that like she wants to do? Is she reduced to this? You know, what's going on? But it gives her more of a character than you would actually expect from this kind of movie.
Mm-hmm. It gives it more of a character, and then also puts another layer of grime and sadness on this lustig joint.
Because then this guy Turkel busts in the door, or busts through the window and starts attacking her. She's already contacted the police,
right?
And she is quote unquote saved by Cordell, who was first on the scene.
Yes, and let's not forget what what Turkel's his weird moralization is, that he wants to kill her because she should be on Broadway, but instead she's stripping. So for all of you out there that have dreams of Broadway, if you don't achieve those dreams, this guy's coming after you.
Yeah,
exactly. Just like he's behind you.
No, I think instead of calling out and murdering, you should be lifting up. Maybe start a Turkel Dream Fund.
I like that
for people that want to be Hollywood, or start putting on your own black box theater shows.
Yeah, put on a show,
off Broadway stuff. I'm sure you've got a lot of pain and anger in there. Turn it into song.
Light a candle, don't curse the darkness. That's what I always say.
Don't light a candle, don't murder a stripper.
Right. Maniac Cop breaks in and almost to the rescue. And interestingly, I thought it was interesting at this point because she sees the cop, and for the first time, like, she screams. She sees this big dude, because I really like how they personify him to most victims, as in like, oh, he's going to save me. This woman is like, well, here's another threat in the apartment. Two more regular cops just kind of burst into the room, and regular cops, not maniac cops. And and Cordell just tosses them to the side. And this is where I started to like this character, because then Turkel just takes him back to his apartment and they just hang out together for a while.
Yeah.
They drink some Jim Beam or some Jack and just like shoot the shit for a while.
Well, because it's just inexplicable. Because he basically hey, cheese it, Turkel. And they go up on the roof and Turkel's like, I've seen you on TV. I know you. You're cool. You want to hang out with me?
I got a real nice apartment. I mean, it's quiet. Nobody ever comes down there. Private, you can come there. I mean, I ain't queer or nothing.
Look at this guy.
Right.
And you're worried that he thinks you're gay. That's some
Right.
deep-seated issues, my friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't understand, because this is where it starts to lose me a little bit, because I don't understand why the Maniac Cop is like, I need a place to crash.
Sure. He's crashing worse places.
Yeah. And it just seems odd that he'd be like, no, but you seem cool. I want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
That never really tracked me. But they also their relationship, as I kind of alluded to earlier, Turkel just says what he thinks the Maniac Cop is thinking. Oh, you just want to go do this, huh? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's very bizarre. And the only time Maniac Cop or Cordell reacts to him is when he says something about I think he talks about his face or something like that. And then he's like, or when you got cut up, and he's like, hey, shut up, man.
Well, and
gives him a look. And
he says his name. We get the first words. He squeaks out Matt Cordell,
because he wants to know his name. And he's like, Cordell.
Yeah. And then we get the whole entire flashback of the shower scene from the first film.
Which I'm glad we went back to, because that is probably my third favorite nude shower fight.
Correct. After Vigo.
And then the director's cut of Cocoon. You get to see Wilford Brimley do a scissor kick to Hume Cronin. It's impressive. Yeah.
Nice.
Highly recommended.
Yeah. Check that out, audience.
Yeah. So they're hanging out in his red lit apartment, which is great. All I could think of course, was Kenny Rogers Roasters. He lived by Kenny Rogers Roasters, but it's supposed to be all creepy or whatever.
Right.
And Cordell is still still in shadow. And this is where he Turkel, we've only known him as Turkel, and we find out that his first name is Steve Turkel.
Steve Turkel. Yep.
Steve Turkel. But he's Steve Turkel. So it's almost like,
the cool version.
Well, no, that's Stefan Urkel. Yeah. So I think this is like a synthesis, almost like Twin Peaks season 3, where you have Mr. C and Dougie Jones.
Got it.
That's Steve Urkel and Stefan Urkel, and then they come together to become Steve Turkel.
Right.
So don't let them meet, because their two urges will bash against each other and make him a murderous rapist.
Right. So, okay. Where's the robot fit into this?
The robot is his id.
Fair enough. Yeah. But Turkel was supposed to be played by Joe Spinell as the character from Maniac.
Yeah. But again, like Lustig is like, no, that's not true. He would have been dead by then. But
it may have been just like a nod type of thing.
Yeah.
But
that would have been amazing to see, though, if it was.
Absolutely.
Joe Spinell is so fantastic.
Yeah.
It would have been great. I mean, Leo Rossi does a bang up job.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been a completely different character.
Yeah. Spinell died of a heart attack just before filming. And I believe this film is dedicated to the memory of him, too. So
indeed it is.
Yeah.
I think they stopped the rap song before it gets to that.
How dare they?
Via con Dios, Raul Julia.
Yeah, right. The cops all decide they need to hit the streets, and they recruit Susan, and they're questioning Dancer. And she says his hands felt like ice.
Yeah, because she did not die. Their story is that she died, but that's just what they floated. They're keeping her alive to go try to find who the killer is. Like, look, we got to go back to this trip.
Yeah,
and
gotta look for all of our leads.
Starting
back at the strip club again.
All at the strip club. We've got 20 officers working on this case.
Round the clock. We've even hired more dancers to come in.
Yeah.
So that it gives the
Working
cops
from
something
the
to do. Right. I did like the line here where she says,
Shooting Cordell's only good for getting his attention.
Something about shooting Cordell is only good for getting his attention, especially because she was so condescended to in the past. You know, it read to me like a good zinger on her side. Everyone convenes in the same strip club again, and they end up arresting Turkel, and it's actually Susan that takes him down. This next scene is one of my favorites in the film. Susan decides she needs to go to a target range. The camera pans in front of the shooting range, and I've been slowly making my way through the Amazon Prime, the making of RoboCop called RoboDoc.
Oh, yes. I've heard nothing but good things about that.
Yeah, I've only watched like 2 episodes of it, but they show the famous scene where Robo's gun just starts like taking out all the targets and everybody leans in. So I just watched that like the night before. And so I'm seeing these great panning shots of like the target range in Maniac Cop 2. And what they do here is pretty fantastic because everybody's shooting in the shooting range, but then the camera turns as if you're looking at the targets, and the Maniac Cop just starts walking up through all the paper targets.
Yeah, he shoots them all from the darkness. All of them. And they and then he just like emerges. And that's such a great shot.
It's like in some ways I almost like that better than the police station scene later on, because I've seen that before, but I had not seen someone like dying at a shooting range. Like how many people get mowed down in the shooting range is impressive.
Yeah. I mean, the whole police station assault is we didn't get to see it in the first one.
Right.
And we get to see it in all its glory in this one. And it is bonkers.
Yes.
And I think, maybe it was just a matter of being oversold to me, but like people talk about how Malignant goes crazy.
Yeah.
And it does to an extent, but like watching this, I was much more like, this is wild.
Yes.
In terms of like what's happening, like who's getting mowed down. And then when he goes up, because he's just got a gun now, he pulls out, gets some fancy automatic and just starts running through the police station, killing them, not running, but slowly making his way through the police station, just shooting people. And like, he's encountered, there's all these like, kiosks of wooden glass that he just walks through, not like Jason, not like punching through, just walks like they're not even there, just mowing people down. And then when he takes the one guy and throws him through a billion walls, it's amazing.
I mean, that's where you see that $4 million budget helping out. Couldn't have done that on the first one.
Yeah, it's just a lot of stunts, and I don't know if that is indeed Robert Z'Dar going through the glass. I'm assuming it is, but I don't know, because he's under heavy makeup.
Yeah,
but he just crashes through all this stuff, and we talked before how like you don't see a lot of, because like I think we talked about this in Basket Case about how just give Belial a gun, that like you don't see a lot of like shooting rampages in horror movies.
Right.
And so like this is so much more of an action film that it's just an action film with horror elements, much like the later Basket Case were comedy horror movis. Like if you have a friend that's like, I don't know about horror, show them this.
Yeah.
You're like, horror can be this, horror can be, whatever. But because this is just the Terminator assault on the police station yet again. Yeah. As Jordan Bloom put it, the Ghoulies to the Terminator.
For sure.
The Ghoulies to the Terminator's Gremlins.
Turkel does get a good line.
It must be visiting hours, because my friend is back.
Cordell is obsessed with Cordell.
Yeah.
Because because like Davi goes to question him and he's like, oh, it's going to take more than a TV show to get my friend's attention. And then he's like in the cell singing a song about Cordell.
Don't you forget me, Cordell. I'm waiting for you here, Cordell.
Alongside criminals played by Danny Trejo. and Clarence Williams III.
Right.
As Bloom. And I was, at first I was like, that's not, is it?
Yeah.
I love watching that guy.
Totally.
He is such a magnetic presence on screen. I always think of him. There's a movie Against the Wall, a John Frankenheimer movie with Kyle MacLachlan and Samuel L. Jackson. It's about Attica. About the Attica prison riots, and he plays an inmate who at one point I think throws hot soup on someone and says "hot soup, motherfucker." So every time I see him, I think of that. But he's so good. He's so like intense. Tales from the Hood.
I mean, that's what most people know him from.
He's so much fun in that. Yeah, just fantastic actor. So I was so excited to see him in this. And one of those like wish he would have been able to do more, but does a lot with what he's got.
Absolutely. Cordell walks into this holding cell, and I do like this idea here that Cordell thinks that they're recruiting an army. And to me, that's just such like a dumb, like comic book idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like what the Joker would do or something. Yeah. He's got Susan as well. And they're putting on cop uniforms. And Cordell is intuiting that no, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Sing Sing. And Bloom's like, I don't want to go back to Sing Sing. I'm going to get murdered there. So to go on death row is like, no. We're going back there because we're going to bust everyone out, all the people on death row, and make an army.
The bus full of convicts make it back to Sing Sing, and the commissioner comes over the megaphone and he admits that it was all a ruse and he's the guilty one.
In your first trial, perjury was committed. Even the presiding judge was influenced. I myself was involved.
So he's trying to admit to Cordell. I mean, part of me likes the idea that he's trying to diffuse the situation by saying, we're going to reopen the case, which is so funny to me. Like, it's kind of like the faintest thing that you could do instead of just overturning. Like, I guess we'll
take a look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
Make sure all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, but we're not sure.
Well, because like basically Robert Davi figures out that something's going on and like basically kidnaps the commissioner.
Yes.
And it's like, I know that some shady shit went down and you're going to diffuse the situation by admitting to it.
Well, what do you want me to do, huh? Shove the gun in my own mouth? Pull the trigger?
That's too easy. I want you to reopen the Cordell case. Get some judge to set aside his conviction and then dig up his empty coffin. That's right, it's going to be empty.
Come on.
Then I want you to bury it again with a police honor guard.
You're fucking crazy, you know that?
Cordell got too close to you people at City Hall who were taking payoffs. So you framed him, put him in a fucking rat hole and set him up.
That's a political position that he could be like, look, a lot of mistakes were made by other people, not me. I'm pure sorry, but we're going to, because he starts saying like, we're going to relook at your case. And then it's like, well, no, we're going to just get rid of your condemnation and your arrest. Right. We're just going to throw that out. But I do like that they break into Sing Sing with under the guise that they're transferring Bloom to Sing. They have his transport papers. Because while they're starting to let him in, I'm like, wouldn't other cops like know what's going on? And sure enough, as soon as they like figure out what's like, oh, we're transferring Bloom, they're like, lock it down. Right. Oh my God.
Right.
Get a couple of inmates in there that are like, it's Cordell. See, I told you he wasn't dead. And we'll hear more from them later.
It goes right to a couple of cops just light Cordell on fire.
Well, it's not cops, they're criminals.
Oh, yes. Sorry, the criminals. Right.
So because they're like, well, we're going to let you go. Commissioner makes that announcement, like the mea culpa, like, hey, mistakes were made. I got you murdered.
Yeah.
But it's so weird because then it seems like Cordell is like, oh, okay. And then he's like leaving, but he walks into sort of this Gen Pop area.
Exactly.
And sees this guy who's like, oh, I remember you as one of the guys that cut up my face. The criminal throws a Molotov cocktail at him, sets him on fire. My mouth was open this entire scene.
Absolutely.
Just like hands on head going, oh my God, because this fire stunt goes on forever.
Yes.
And apparently it was like 3 or 4 different burns.
3 days shooting.
Yeah. 3 or 4 different burns at a time. And like you could only like maximum a person could be on fire is like 30 seconds. And they really like stretch it out with slow motion or and then, cutting and cutting back. But he goes on this flame-addled rampage of just picking up people, setting them on fire.
Yep.
In the IMDb quote-unquote goofs or whatever, it's like, well, you can see the stuntman's wearing a protective mask. Whatever.
Shut up.
Who cares?
He's still
this is
on
amazing
fire.
to watch. Yeah. Like you are watching a guy on fire a lot, just like moving around and punching and doing things.
Voluntarily.
Yeah. Cordell is pissed about this because he's like, oh.
You never cared for me. You're never my friend.
Stabs him in the back and then Cordell grabs him and then shoves him through a wall. And apparently this stunt had never been done before. Like Lustig, like apparently they couldn't. They were still trying to figure out the ending. Larry Cohen came down to set. They hashed it out, and like they asked Spiros Rosados, has anyone ever like done a fall stunt while on fire? And he's like, not that I know of. And it's crazy. And I didn't think about this is because like when you're doing all that, you have to like basically hold your breath.
Oh, right.
You
Interesting.
think about the damage the fire does, but like you could inhale fire.
Yes.
Not just smoke, fire, and like just burn your lungs and that's it. So they did it though. But like, so you just have to hold your breath and then they're dangled from a wire. They have like a safety wire, but you can't really call to get extinguished while you're like up in the air. So it was pretty dangerous, but they were able to do it.
Yeah. And evidently one of the early cuts as Cordell grabbed Turkel, the actor playing Turkel, didn't want to do it. He just saw the fire stunt and he's like, you know what? I don't think I want to do this anymore. And Lustig was like trying to negotiate with him. And he finally says, fine, Lustig, you do it. And Lustig said, sure. And so he put on a glove and said, okay, light me on fire. And I guess that's one of Lustig's hands, like grabbing Turkel.
Oh, wow.
And he called his bluff and he was just like, all right, bud, lighting you on fire now, right? So Lustig is one of those directors who is just like, I won't ask anybody to do what I won't do.
Yeah.
So, and Turkel said basically like, all right, I respect him. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
He did it for me. So
you did it. I'll do it. Now, that's fair enough.
Yeah. Obviously then it became a stuntman going out the window. However, for those initial close-ups, my respect for Lustig grew 2 sizes that day.
Oh yeah. And all the stunt performers in this, like it's just this amazing stunt work. And yeah, I was really just blown away. Like that whole sequence just blew me away. Yeah. It's just fantastic.
Man, this is such a tired argument, but it's just like the atmosphere around doing this with CG is just so much different than the absolute fear and carnage that are probably on set that day.
Yeah. And I mean, like, cause you could have him like all CG flamed and then like, you know, he maybe says a witty quip or something or like smiles creepily and that could be effective, but just watching a human being set ablaze tromping around is just amazing.
And you know, falling out a window onto a bus, not behind any like, you know, bushes hidden with a pad or anything like that. They fall onto a bus and then through the bus's roof.
And then through the bus. Yeah. Omen style. Yeah. Like, and then the bus of course explodes because
why not? When 2
flaming bodies hit a chair in a bus, it just blows up.
Yes.
Prison buses, I guess. But yeah, it's what a way to end. And then it cuts to or dissolves to the funeral, and they're reburying Matt Cordell. And I like that it's a small ceremony, and it's sort of begs the question of is it just that Matt Cordell had no family, or is this just like a hush hush like we're doing this?
I kind of feel like it's the latter.
Yeah, we don't need to make a big deal out of it. You know, we don't need to publicize this. Let's just throw him in the ground. And then the preacher, the priest, like, it's like, oh, this is sad, but what's really terrible is the people that were lying about him. And it felt like the end of a Neil Breen movie.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, the entire, like, what little cops there are leaving just Susan and Robert Davi. And just, it's really strange, but I really like it. How just like the groundskeeper like comes over, presses a button and just slowly lowers it's very just like unceremonious.
Yes.
Just that, then the sound it sounds like it's just sort of farting him down into the ground.
Right.
It's just awkward, but it's like, this is so like, oh, he got his combination, but who gives a shit?
Yeah. His peers aren't there to see him going to the ground. I guess Davi tosses a badge on the top. He tosses the
badge in there, but it's just like if it doesn't mean anything now, you know? And I kind of like that emptiness of that ending.
For sure. But about as empty as his grave.
Yeah, for part 3, because they're leaving, and Robert Davi gives this whole speech about like, but there's a little bit of Cordell in every cop. Like every time we shoot a guy, because the lawyers can't undo it.
Right.
It's just this thirst of justice, like you did at the beginning of the movie. But maybe that's him coming to terms with it.
Yeah.
But and then the camera slowly goes back to the grave, goes down, and then sees the badge in the hand, comes up, grabs the badge, and goes back in.
Right. You're not going to end a Maniac Cop at 2, especially if they knew that they were making a good movie, which they were. they're just like, we got to keep this going. We finally hit our stride with this character.
I'm sure if William Lustig was like, this rules, I'm kicking ass, let's do another line of Maniac Cop.
Absolutely. Full uncup Cordell.
Yeah. And then we get what this has all been building towards.
Just listeners, just do not allow Amazon or Shudder or wherever you're watching this to skip ahead in 10 seconds to the next film.
Yeah.
Just sit with this piece of music.
The credits, the end credit theme that Jay Chattaway, who did the music for the first one, absolutely did not want to do, but William Lustig was like, yeah, do it. Everyone's doing it now.
Right.
And it is a rap about the Maniac Cop, which sort of like, it's like he's a Ninja Turtle.
I mean, that's absolutely what it sounds like.
Yeah. It's the same kind of thing. It's like, he's the bad guy in this. He murdered a lot of people.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, he's crazy. And my favorite part is the little run up at the beginning. And that like, is given in the way that like, I cornered these guys in the office and was complaining about some crappy customer service experience I had at Applebee's. Yeah. And they're like, oh, that's terrible.
Not murder. But listen to that if you're a fan. And we've only talked about it once on the show before, but just, the end credit rock songs, rap songs of 80s and 90s. This is going to be up there. Like, I'm surprised this doesn't show up on lists and,
Yeah, I think this is our first like rap because we've had songs like Roger Clinton's "Blood on the Wings" for Pumpkinhead 2. And I know that there was Alice Cooper's, Behind the Mask, or Man Behind the Mask. But those were songs where it's like this. The rap songs tend to be ones that sort of like laid out the plot,
tell the story.
Yeah, and it does a little bit because it gives you some background about how like they put him in jail and now he's the villain, but. I really like the one of like he shoot him with an Uzi, he'll end up in your jacuzzi or something. It's
what do you get a rhyme with Uzi, huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
floozy.
There we go. We were at the strip club looking for floozies.
Looking for floozies. Had a bit too much to drink, made me woozy.
See, there you go. There are ways to be nice about this, especially towards floozies.
Just Jay Chattaway in the back of a bus going down 8 Mile, writing the lyrics on his hand.
Right. All right. Well, let's honor our dead and get out of here. Store clerk, played by Santos Morales, shot by Cordell. Robber, played by Marco Rodriguez, shot by Cordell. Jack, played by Bruce Campbell, stabbed in the back by Cordell. Dancer, strangled by Stephen Turkle. Traffic officer, beaten with a nightstick by Cordell. Cab driver, played by Vincent Russo, ran over by police car driven by Cordell. Teresa, played by Laureen Landon, neck snapped by Cordell. Police officer, thrown into table by Cordell. Police officer, thrown into wall by Cordell. Range officer, played by James Dixon, shot by Cordell. 5 police officers, shot by Cordell. 7 police officers, shot by Cordell. Police captain, thrown through walls by Cordell. Police officer and officer butler, both thrown through doors by Cordell. Unnamed convict, played by Shelley Desai, beaten with nightstick by Cordell. Prison guard, played by John Barnes, neck snapped by Cordell. 3 inmates, killed by Officer Cordell. Stephen Turkle, played by Leo Rossi, caught on fire, thrown out window, then exploded in bus. A considerably larger body count this time. And we did not, on last episode, go for number predictions.
Oh, God.
But I don't even know where to begin. I think it's like we're 2/3 of the way through. So,
and it's like, and I think we're in the 50s.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea, but I
feel like there was like 25 to 30 or so But yeah, you'll forgive us if we didn't take up time to do a body prediction count on last episode. However, yeah, we might just kind of skip that for this time. But I will come back with a total kill count for this.
We'll still do that.
It just won't be the friendly competition that we text each other about constantly leading up.
Yeah, no trophy awarded this time.
Right. But yeah, overall, man, this is a good one. So
this is it. It was a lot of fun. And I had remember because I had seen this one before too, and I think I had watched them, the first one and this one, like pretty close together, like almost back to back.
Yeah.
I remember being like kind of disappointed in this one, and now I'm looking back. Well, why? I think it was just sort of like the Basket Case 2 thing of like, well, it wasn't the first one. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, but that's fine. This is a kick-ass movie.
And I think I watched these when I was younger too, and I was probably a little bit more Bruce Campbell focused, and I had the well, why that? But now, I don't know.
I do think there's a lot of this movie that doesn't make sense.
Sure.
The relationship with Cordell just doesn't make any sense to me, but just, okay, fine, whatever. Just enjoy the stunts. Yeah. Like, there's some great stuff.
Right. Yeah. Really dug it. So what did y'all think, listeners? Did you like the more action direction? Did you prefer the slasher direction of the first one? Where will part 3 go? I have vague memories of it, and I'm hoping that we'll have a specific guest on to jog our memories about that. In a couple of weeks. But yeah, any final thoughts on part 2? I think we about covered it in a nice brisk pace, just like the actual film.
I will say, like, I just wanted to add something that we talked about a little bit in the first one about how this is getting a little bit more, definitely leans a little bit harder into like, yay for cops.
Sure.
Because the first one has that element of, hey, I'm afraid of cops. And cops are just, they want to beat people up and be big men. And this was a lot more like, you don't know how bad cops got it. In fact, at one point, the psychiatrist is like talking about Teresa. It's like, I don't know her state of mind. I just sit behind a desk all day.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know. There's a lot of that that's a little bit okay. A little bit more rah-rah cops in the first one. I definitely am very fascinated by, and if you are listening, Jeff Alessi, who was a grip on this movie, or anyone that worked with him, why his name in the credits is Jeff, quote, Itchy Brother Alessi. That's his credit. His nickname is Itchy Brother.
I wonder if he goes by Itchy Brother on multiple films, or...
Yeah, I'm curious, or if there was a specific event that happened, or if he's like, man, today I'm itchy. And they're like, guess what? That's in the credits now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, everyone, we'll fire up Maniac Cop Part 3 on, I believe, Shudder, Tubi, and of course the old physical media if you've got that.
Never fails.
Yeah, of course. Until then, you can find us at This May Hurt a Bit Pod on Instagram, Hurt a Bit Pod on YouTube, and you can email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. And if you have the time and the druthers, why don't you go ahead and leave us one of those 5-star reviews wherever you listen to that. Just 5 stars, baby. No 4s, no 3s. Just don't even bother if you don't like it that much. Just 5 stars. Helps with the old algorithm. So
yeah, gets us listeners.
Yeah. And so yeah, we'll see you in a couple of weeks for Maniac Cop Part 3. So good night.
Good night.
This has been a Caretaker Press production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review over on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.